In this video today, I'm going to be looking at a game called Matanikau. It is one of the Gamer's Tactical Combat Series games. The Tactical Combat basically is a system that the units are companies and the formations of the units are battalions. It's, I think, the most tactical level of the World War II type games that they have. And I have nearly the entire collection of TCS games. I think I don't have the later, the Korean War one. I've forgotten what it's called. But there's a few things about this game. You don't need to play with these, but it sure makes them a lot more enjoyable, and that is with the ops sheets, which has a map of the map, and then you can write on it, scribble on it, as to kind of control where you're sending your units. You can make notes, you can write out what happens if things go wrong, and where your save yourself retreat will be. And so it's kind of a nice addition to the system. You don't have to be, it's not burdensome. It is worth playing with, and just be loose with them and use them for the intent that they had. I'll just mention a few of the special rules that come up in this game. For the American player, at night, things kind of shut down. No, there's not really night movement for them. They have to get into prepared defense orders on all night turns. So that is a limitation, and there's a high priority on the perimeter of Henderson Field. So this is really dealing with this section in September, October, I think, of 1942 in the Guadalcanal campaign in particular. There is some special rules for units that belong to the Whaling Scouts as well as the Raiders. And the Whaling Scouts are named such, I think, because the leader was Lieutenant Colonel William Whaling, and these men were specifically trained for work under these jungle settings. In fact, the rules mention that they can operate independently and in the jungle using the native trail system. So they had a little bit of an advantage, in any units that happen to be with the Whaling Scouts or the Raiders have this advantage. And for one, they pay only 2 movement points in a jungle hex rather than 3. And the whaling units can move freely at night. They're not under the restriction of being in prepared defense at night. So I'll just comment on that as a kind of a nice special rule. There is also some rules for some of the scenarios using Higgins boats. I think there are 5 of them, and they can hold up to 7 steps to move American units around. And one other thing, this is just a typical Dean Essig thing that comes up in some of his rules. This is about the movement of Higgins boats. It mentions that the boats may never be captured. The Japanese player cannot attempt to sail out to the Ballard, regardless of how many Errol Flynn movies he's seen. So that's the typical type of tongue-in-cheek humor that Dean Essig had, although he's not really the designer of this game. He's the designer of the series and the developer, and I have to think that he's the one behind that sentence in the Higgins boats rules. There are also rules for the for naval gunfire for the American player. Apparently, there's a ship that is offshore, the USS Ballard, which is a converted seaplane tender, according to the rules here, and it can fire with a firepower, I believe, of 20, and it gets treated as artillery in this game. There's also some rules for Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Chesty Puller, who is the commander of the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, and he has some special, he doesn't have a counter in the game, but his units are identified with the 1-7 Marine, and they have some special morale modifiers. So that's one of the advantages that they have. So those are just some of the special rules in this game that I wanted to comment to. And we'll just take a little bit of a look at the map. I'll show you some of the actions that happened in my game that's highlighted in some of the pictures. So this picture is showing some of the action of the 5th Marines. And I think earlier I may have commented that the units are companies, but they're not. They're actually platoons. The individual units are platoons, and then there are obviously made up of companies and battalions as a whole in these actions. So, but you do see the 5th Marine here holding this road along the coastline across this river, and you've got some the Japanese 4-2 units are engaged with them. You see both sides are suppressed, and the Americans have some artillery here that's involved. They've got a 60 millimeter mortar, I think, that's providing some defense. And then we see I've got the company E, F, and G are out trying to outflank the Japanese position here. You can see them in move mode, going around the flank, headed right up to that road in their rear area. This next picture is showing Matanikau, the village, and you see it's got a very difficult terrain along the coast here with a location called the sand pit. You can see here in the sand pit on either side there's a bottleneck marker, and what that simply means is not a major movement effect on that, but what happens is only one unit at a time can go through. You can't move a stack through. So it is a very, it's a difficult obstacle for the Marines to deal with, or the Japanese Marines for that matter. So the billiard table type terrain ends up, having a +3 modifier to it if you're targeted by fire. So buyer beware going into that. This next picture here shows some fighting that is getting ready to happen near the log bridge. Some interesting things here. You see the 2nd Marines are coming in here, but on the right flank you've got the whaling scouts these are units that have a little bit of an advantage in the terrain, but they are facing down the Japanese 4-2 on the river line. And of course that bridge is a very important location to defend for the Japanese. And so this last picture just shows the defensive setup that the Japanese have in the city, which is an objective here. And now you have the 5th Marines, the unit that were outflanking the units. It's just barely off the right side of the picture. You're part of the 5th Marines facing them down and pinning them, and then we're coming in behind them heading toward the sand pit with the 5th Marine. So you can see this game offers a lot of fun, I think, in playing through it, and I think it's very easy to find in the secondhand market. This is not an expensive game to get, and it's a very good example of a tactical combat series game. So I definitely recommend it. And I thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned if you'd like to see more war game videos. Have a great day.